Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Up Your Brave live stream. This is where we come together every week and we really dive deep into issues, topics, and tips to help you to raise the state of resilience, health, and happiness in your life, but also my mission on a global scale. We want to change things up because things at the moment are a little bit cray-cray. So today we're going to be talking about empowering kids in times of change. Now, if you've been following the series, we've done supporting kids in times of challenge. We've done supporting teens and empowering teens. And this is our second episode, all about kids and youth, you can call them. And I'm super excited to have three amazing guest experts with me. So let's bring them in. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi. So we've got Jacqlin Richards from Your Parent Journey. Hey, Jacqlin.
Hi, lovely to be here.
Yay. We've got Kat Levine, who was meant to be doing an amazing tour around the country with Mike King, but things got a little COVID on us, but good to have you here, Kat.
Good to be here.
And we've got Talia Carlisle. You're going to hear about her and her work on cruise ships and other exciting places. Hey, Talia. Very cool. Okay, so you guys, this is how we're going to roll. I'll give you a little bit of backstory on each of the guests, and they will share with us their first tip. So Jacqlin, you're first up. So Jacqlin Richards from Your Parent Journey is a mother, parent, mentor, speaker, and facilitator who is deeply passionate about bringing greater awareness to the way we raise our children. Yes, raising empowered children takes empowered parents, and she loves to walk alongside men and women as they empower themselves through their mentorship into a very different way of being a parent. Amazing. Sorry, it's cut off. I'm going to have to, there we go. She's going to share her 3 F's with us, which is going to be exciting. And the work that she loves to do, which is weaving in her journey and empowering others along theirs. Amazing. So good to have you here, Jacqlin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yay. So if you want to just share a little bit more detail on your backstory and then take us to your first tip. For those of you that are watching, by the way, please go ahead and comment. Let us know where you're geographically watching from. I can see the numbers of people watching, which is so good to have you here. Let us know where you are geographically. And hey, let us know how many kids you have if you have kids.
Awesome. So my name is Jacqlin. Obviously, thank you so much, Nat, for having me here. And it's lovely to be here with the other women here. This is one of my favorite topics, empowerment, because I had very little of it when I first became a parent, very little. So what I would love to share on the back of my bio is about empowerment and the 3 F's of parenting. I'm going to leap straight in and share these because these for me are all about empowerment. These for me are all about freedom because they're not the F's that you might think they are, the ones that we kind of might have when our lives as a parent. But what they are is creating the freedom of time in your life as a parent, you know, so that we can have more of it, because I don't know any parent that's going to say no to having more time. The second freedom is the freedom to be who you are as a parent, you know, not like your parents did it or based on the judgments of others. And the freedom to let your kids be who they are. And, you know, this is definitely part of what we're talking about today because they're not little mini-me's. They're their own individual little unique little spirits. And for me, those 3 freedoms are at the core of my work. And there's a little bit of stuff that gets in the way of those 3 freedoms for a lot of parents. It certainly did when I was first a parent, and that's what I love to help parents with. So would you like me to leap straight into the first insight or the first tip, Nat?
Yeah, definitely. That would be great.
Okay,
but
cool.
I love the F's. You know, anyone that follows me knows I love I've got the 3 D's and the 4 B's. I love the 3 F's. All good.
Yeah, well, it's so clear, isn't it? It's so crystal to know what somebody is about. So for me, the first tip that I really wanted to share around this topic of empowerment is that we need to stop making change wrong. Yeah, we need to stop layering it over with this negative energy and this wrong energy. And what I'm talking about here is that if we want to empower our kids through change, then we need to embrace it ourselves as parents. And I get it. Most of us are so, you know, conditioned to think that change is wrong and scary and bad and hard and all that other stuff. But change is the nature of life. Right? It's the one constant. And if we keep fighting it, you know, it doesn't flow. So if I was going to put it in a nutshell, my first tip would be the dance from perfectionism to okayism, because I like dances and I like isms. So you know, to stop making change wrong, we need to stop fighting it and what I mean by that is letting go of the need to get it right. Yeah, letting go of the need to be perfect, letting go of the need to have everything perfect, which is essentially, the need to get it right. So for me, freedom is, it's about as far away from freedom as you can get when you're trying to have everything perfect.
Yeah, you are talking my language with that. Lovely. Good to see you there, Shailesh. Shailesh was one of our guests on a previous episode, so good to see you there. So that's awesome. Jacqlin, we'll come back to you for more in a mo. Kat, we're going to go to you. So I know that Kat and I we met at one of the Professional Speaking Association events. You're a massive speaker. You've been doing so much traveling like in your life. So I'm going to read a little bit of a backstory on Kat for you guys. Kat has spoken for 20 years about emotional intelligence and mental health and has given over 1,000 presentations in schools and businesses around New Zealand and overseas. She recently toured. Oh, great. So you got some of it in there. You can tell us a little bit about it. She recently toured with Mike King speaking in primary schools about mental health with her famous Mood Cube. Kat is currently booking for schools presentations on anxiety and empathy and resilience for the last half of 2020 and for 2021. And you guys, by the way, I will put all this information and the links up, of course, as we always do, on the show notes, which is on nataliecutlerwelsh.com/video series. And you can go and find more about these ladies and what they're up to, which is so amazing. So Kat, tell us a little bit more about, your backstory and what your first tip is for us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here, and I love to tell stories. And it was a bit of an adventure back in March going on tour with Mike King. So a bit of the backstory for that is my dad has done a Bluff to Cape Reinga tour with tractors, 15 or 20 tractors, twice before fundraising for hospice. Mm-hmm. Now, this time for 2020's tour, he decided to do it for rural mental health, as a lot of our farmers struggle, and my dad is a farmer. So I just happened to sit next to Mike King on a flight about a year and a half ago, and ended up, he was speaking to the farmers and I was speaking in schools, in the primary schools and high schools, about mental health. It did get cut short to COVID, but we got as far as New Plymouth, and we'll be finishing off the country, and now schools have opened up again. I'll be back in there and we'll continue on with it. So it was just an amazing time going into schools. I think the smallest one was 12 children in Wongamomina, up to 900 at a high school down in Christchurch, and I talk about big feelings, and I've got this little mood cube, as you heard, which is about getting the children to describe how they're feeling, because a big thing is that kids have these things they're feeling, but they don't have the language to describe it. So the first thing is that emotional literacy and helping them to express what it is. So I talk about my feelings as a little girl growing out on a farm, and how I had this feeling that would grow and grow, and I get this a little blue ball like this, and then it grows into a ball like this, and then a Swiss ball, and a great big blue ball that I get on. And I talk about how we all have big feelings, and I would ask the children in the audience, have any of you got big feelings? And they put up their hands, and it's really heartbreaking. That's why I'm so passionate about talking to parents, not just the children, as you'd have these little wee kids put up their hand and say, I'm really worried because mummy and daddy, they can't buy a house. They've sold the other house and we've got nowhere to move. And then this particular little girl just burst into tears. And so I'm there in front of an audience, sort of indicating for the teacher to come over and comfort this child. Or another little boy, he put his hand up to share a big feeling, and then put his hat over his face and wouldn't answer. And so I talked to the teacher later, and SIFs had taken him off his mum and dad, and so he was living in care. And that's what I'm coming across in the schools. At one school I was at, they had 41 on suicide watch. It was a secondary school, and it had several suicides in the past few years. So for our kids to know that they can share with us, because a lot of the reason behind suicide is feeling that they're a burden and they can't talk to us about what's going on. So that's why I'm so passionate about educating parents and the children, helping them talk about those feelings so they don't get burdened. So my main theme for those talks in schools for the first presentation is that feelings aren't forever. So as parents, we remember that and get your children to open up about their feelings, and then that helps it shrink it down by giving it a name. So that's my tip number one.
That is so awesome. Here, Talia's popping. Here she comes. Yay, good timing. It's interesting. I mean, to all of you, the work that you do, I mean, you know, I was saying to someone this morning, I am an author of a parenting book. I've done 200 podcasts, but I'm not a parenting expert. Like, I don't really actively help parents. I help them with wellness and I help women entrepreneurs. But I feel like the role of really empowering those that work directly with kids is so massive. And that's why I've got you guys here. I want to help the people who help the people, which is you guys. And I feel like if we start with kids, you know, and we really help them to acknowledge how they feel, move towards how they do want to feel, not push how they feel down. So it's amazing that you call it big feelings and you make it okay for them to acknowledge that. And feelings aren't forever. That is a really good catchphrase. So I really want to honor the work that all of you guys are doing, because it's so crucial. And, you know, it's a challenging time right now, but life is always challenging and it's always changing. Like Jacqlin says, it is always changing, and that's okay. Thank you so much, girls. Okay, let's go to Talia. I'm glad you made it back in time. That's awesome. All right, so Talia, I'm so happy. I'll give them a little backstory on you. And the funny little link here, you guys, is I went on a cruise last year. It was on my vision board for many years. I'm very pleased we did it in 2019, not 2020. But who was on my cruise but Mike King? He was on my cruise and he's on holiday. And you know, when you see someone, you're like, I really want to say hi, but like, I don't want to be that person. So anyway, I got to know his wife a little bit, and I did chat with him a little bit, but isn't that interesting? So Kat, you work with Mike, and Talia has worked on cruise ships. So there's our little segue. Great to see you here, Wynan. Thank you for joining. He says feelings aren't forever. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Wynan was a guest on one of our relationship series, and coming up, we're going to talk about marriage and relationships again, which really relates to parenting as well. All right, let's hear about Talia. Talia Carlisle is a children's performer, international nanny, and journalist, passionate about empowering the next generation to dream big. Navigating change is something Talia is used to. She's worked in the ever-changing media industry as an education journalist, travel writer, and presenter for Big Review TV. Talia learned to harness her creativity as a screen actor and a performer for children's theater company to audiences of 400 schools across New Zealand and Australia. She has heard the hopes of parents in the Pacific Islands. You're going to talk a little bit, I imagine, about some of your work there. And she challenges the next generation to step up, to speak up, and to seize every opportunity. Talia works with Girl Boss, which I'm sure you're going to tell us about as well, which empowers teens, which will be amazing. So let's hear a little bit from Talia. Talia, I'm so happy to have you here. And this is someone who's not necessarily a parent, not a mother, but someone who's worked with the kids, who's been on the ground floor. I'm excited to have you here. Welcome.
That's interesting that you say that, Natalie. And thank you so much for having me here with your amazing other guests. I was just in awe listening to Jacqlin and Kat talking about their different experience, and I was like, yes, I so identify with Jacqlin's empowerment message, and Kat just being able to listen to the kids and hear what they're saying instead of projecting our ideas onto them, which is so important. And yes, it is a bit interesting that I am quite young. Well, I'm 29, but I feel probably younger. If anything, I feel more like a kid than a grown-up. But I think that my age has definitely given me an edge when it comes to my nannying and working with kids, because from their perspective, they often see me as someone that they can talk to and identify with. And I just treasure that so much. Like, I have a big family myself. I have 3 siblings who I love. And I just love those kind of relationships that you can have with kids, because they're so open, and that is something so important to treasure. So that's why if I was going to talk about a tip, I was going to talk about how when we are talking to kids, but all people, it's so important to realize where we are coming from and not necessarily project our ideas onto them, but also not to project any negative energy onto them, because so often, and this is a lesson that I learned, especially when I was nannying overseas for the first time, and I was quite overwhelmed and just wanting to try too hard to do a good job, that I was trying to do the job that I thought I needed to do instead of listening to what the kids wanted. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can project a negative energy onto the kids. And you know, you don't want them to pick up any bad habits from you. You want to empower them, to let them pick up all of the good things that you have to offer. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's something that any of you have dealt with in the work that you've done so far, but it's just something that I realized was really important when dealing with any person in any walk of life. You know, our ideas getting in the way of what we could be talking to, and, you know, are we talking instead of listening?
I think that's something, it's interesting you say that. There's such a connection there with, I think, motherhood, you know, what mothers and probably fathers, they have this vision of the mother they're going to be. And maybe what Jacqlin was pointing out, like they go, I'm not going to be like that. Or, you know, that's my role model. I am going to be like that. And it's like same thing with anyone that's dealing with kids. It's not just parents. It's don't just try to be the version of who you were trying to be. I think that's a really good insight. Jacqlin or Kat, do you guys want to comment on anything before we move on?
Yeah, I think I love what you're saying, Talia, because the energy that we bring to parenting is everything. It's everything. And if we can bring a real yes energy to our parenting, then that's what's gonna. Then that's what we're gonna get. That's the experience that we're gonna have, and that's the experience our kids are gonna have. So 100% yes.
I love how you call that yes energy, because yes is such a powerful word, and that's something I'm definitely trying to get across when I was nannying as well, because so many kids get told you've got to do this, you've got to do this. Well, you know, what do you want to do, and why are we doing these things? And if I know, especially for me, I know if I know the reason why I'm doing something, I'm so much more passionate and hardworking about it.
Yeah,
totally.
And the research that I've been doing into stress, because I speak in workplaces about stress as well, and this fascinating research, it was done on mothers with little toddlers, and the conclusion about it is that there's this thing called secondhand stress. So if a mother leaves the room and experiences a stressful situation where her cortisol, her stress hormone levels go up, when she returns to the room to be with her baby, the baby's cortisol levels go up, their stress level goes up. And so as parents, you know, you're talking about negative energy, and when you're going through stress and you think you're hiding it from your children, and it does affect them and it does elevate them, and they talk a lot about anxiety and how parents can help their children with anxiety. But if you're not managing your own negative energy, you're not managing your own stress levels, and even for teachers as well, that how it affects your attunement to the children, how it affects your eye contact and your availability without you even knowing, has had a huge impact on the children. So there's a lot about working on ourselves, and how that impacts our kids too.
Yeah. I'm so passionate about that, Kat, about, you know, where are you coming from? And, you know, you have to put yourself first to put others first as well, you know, making sure that you're ready to do this. And, you know, I don't think that I was ready when I first started nannying overseas, but I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere. But yeah, that's the best way to prepare yourself. Thank you so much for that, Kat.
Yeah.
I love that you bring up, Kat, about, especially with emotional intelligence, like people, the mask thing, you know, people putting on their happy face, and they, like, you can just see it, like a mother might leave the room and like have a moment of stress, but the kid's going to feel it even if they can't hear it. So yeah, I'm a big believer. You guys know I love my essential oils. Well, one of the reasons is I work with overwhelmed moms and overworked entrepreneurs. And I really feel like if we at least acknowledge how we feel, not just try to be happy all the time, that is a starting point. But I'm keen for more thoughts on that. I'll share one of my tips, and it's got a little bit of a story attached to it. So I posted the other day a picture of my children with guinea pigs. And I said, you know, it's interesting. As a kid, I was the pet child. I don't know if every family has like one animal lover, but generally you have like a perfectionist and an animal lover. I'll get that one. So I was the animal lover. I would draw these plans of the pet shop I was going to own when I was growing up, and we had a fish pond, and we had hamsters and guinea pigs and bunnies and a dog. Anyway, I loved pets so much. My little guy, Xavier, he is he's our pet man, and he really, really wanted guinea pigs for ages. Now my husband was like, okay, Xavier, you need to do some research. Come to me with the cost of the cage. Can you commit to the feeding and the changing? You know, right? And then Xavier's like, I know what I want. I want guinea pigs. Let's get them, right? And then we were driving out to go and look at these guinea pigs, and my husband says, "Now you're not going to bring them home, are you? We're going away on holiday on Thursday." And I'm thinking, have you met me? I'm not going to drive for half an hour to go not get guinea, you know. Anyway, we're driving the car, and we have these life lessons with mommy in the car all the time. We're driving the car, and I said, well, you know, you have to realize, Xavier, that daddy's version of research is different. And Ruby goes, yes, because daddy and I are really similar. I said, that's right. So when to show daddy that you're responsible, you need to speak in his language. You need to show him written down the cost of the cage, you know, your schedule for doing the feeding and the watering and all the things. Then he thinks that you're ready. Whereas mommy speaks a different language. It's like, oh, you know what you want? You've got a plan? let's do it. Let's make it happen yesterday. So I said, and he's like, yes, I'm very much like you, Mommy. Yes. But my point here with the guinea pig story is treat them equal, but not the same. So if it was Ruby who was planning to get the dog, she made a plan to fundraise and it took her a year to raise the money for half the dog, which is what we said. So it's like, kids are so different. If I just looked at him and thought, oh, he's not organized, he doesn't really want guinea pigs, but he's just not going to do it in the same way that Ruby would plan and prepare and show that she's responsible. So my parenting message for those that have, more than one child would be to treat them equal, but not the same.
Can I chime in there?
Yes.
So a lot of you would have heard about the 4 different behavioural types, or DISC, or Florence Littauer, and Ali Mooney, and that kind of thing. So I've created this, which is kind of an easy reference point, and it's a way to work out, where's my camera, whether someone, what style they are, whether they, I'm guessing you're a yellow, you're an influencer, Nat?
I think so.
Yeah, and might be, is he a bit of a more concise? Is he likes his facts and things, right? Yeah. So once you've worked out, so Nat, you're the yellow influencer, and then on the side here, it's how to connect with you, how to motivate you, what your needs are, and what stresses you out. And that's the opposite for me. People on the other side, so your husband's over there. Yeah. So that's the thing with your children. Do they like a lot of structure, or do they need more freedom and spontaneity? And when you understand what you are, then and you understand what your child is, because often we've got the opposites in the family and in the relationship. And if we treat them how we want to be treated, then that can drive them crazy. Yeah. The ones who like structure and order and planning. My husband, he just says, I'd say, oh, let's renovate the bathroom this weekend, and he needs about 2 years to get his head around it. And so that's just kind of an adjusting thing of I can't just be as spontaneous as I was, because I need to take into consideration him, and we need to as for our kids as well. Even though we're the big people, we need to meet them and understand them, and that creates a whole lot more peace and tranquility, which is what we want in our families.
Amazing. Hey, Pat, if you've got a resource and we can link to some of those, like a description of those personality types, like you say, there's so many different models, but it's really great to help to understand. And I always say, we're not putting them in a box. We're helping to understand people better and judge each other less. Yep. All right, Jacqlin, let's go to you for your second tip.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, Kat. I work with a system as well, which talks about the differences that we have as individuals on this world, and that we all see and experience and view the world very differently. So I love that. It's really, really important. And as you say, Nat, it helps to let go of the judgment, because we're different. So the second tip that I wanted to offer is all around empowering kids through choice. And Talia, you touched on it so beautifully before that, so many of our children don't feel like they have any choice. They and especially during the lockdown circumstances, all the choices kind of went even less. So, kids want to feel powerful and autonomous and independent, just like we do as adults. But, they need to feel like they have some control over their lives and some say, and most often that they don't. It's a constant stream of you can't do this and you can't do that and you have to do it this way, and, that kind of parenting, which I love to call over-parenting. So I've got a little story that I'd love to share with you around this, because my over-parenting was rife when I was an early parent. And as I've been giving my kids more choice through a dance that I call parent choice and kid choice, and being really clear on what the parent choices are and what the kid choices are. Kid choices are, you can wear your hair how you want, you can wear the clothes how you want, you can even keep your room how you want it. Yeah, and this is a big one, as long as there's no moldy food in the room, because that's mum's choice. So, getting really clear, and the kids love it, they're like, yeah, it's my choice, and they're dancing because they know it's their choice. But in this little story that I want to share with you is with my little fella, and he'd lost something in his room, because when we were navigating through this transition of them keeping their room how they wanted, it was like a dump, it was like a tip. And he, oh, Mum, where's my stapler? Where's my stapler? And I'm like, I don't know. And I went into his room and I started helping him look for it. And, and a couple of days later, and I think I must have done yoga or something, or I'd just come out of a lovely meditation, and I was very calm and very still. And he said, Mum, where's my stapler? And I said, dude, if you want to keep your room like that, you're on your own, buddy. you know, you're on your own. And he just walked in and he goes, oh, Mum, I think I'm going to clean my room. And I was like, no, because it comes from him and the choice is his. He is much more likely to keep his room tidy, you know, because it's his choice. So that's my second tip. Get really clear about what choices are yours, you know, the ones that you really want to hang on to, the ones really important to you, and let the other ones go, because does it really matter if their socks aren't matching? It did to me when I was first a parent, and now it's just like, oh my God, I really can let go of that battle. And, you know, the kids become so much more cooperative, they're so much more empowered, they're so much more autonomous because they have choice.
Love that. Amazing. Great example about the stapler. Did he find the stapler?
And now he knows exactly where it is every single time, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Kat, what about your second tip?
Well, I'm going to give you an inside tip into my presentation as well, since none of you are children and I'm not ruining the surprise. So when I have, say, 8-year-olds plus, I talk about feelings aren't forever, but then I also talk about the triune brain that you may have heard about. But I have this this prop here, and I carry this around on stage while I'm talking, and then I throw it with all my might into the audience. And as you can see, it's rubber. So the children, the crowd parts and they almost pee their pants and their hearts are going like this. And so I'm talking about my point in that is, you know, your functioning, your feeling, and your thinking brain. Your functioning brain has got your heartbeat going, and you know, you're sweating and all these things, and you're feeling that crazy woman, I'm going to die. But my point for that is that feelings aren't facts. And so I get the children repeating that you may feel that, but it doesn't mean it's a fact. So I just think of those two things that children can take with them through life. Feelings aren't forever and feelings aren't facts. But when I bring this to parents and talk about that is something, I've got a 15-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 20-year-old, and something that I really, really struggled with my kids is that they would come and say, oh, Mum, this girl's done this at school, or I hate my teacher, or rah, rah. And I would feel that I needed to fix them, and that when they told me about the situation in their social circle, then suddenly I needed to be a psychotherapist and able to guide them through and counsel them through that and come up with a solution. And that is an overwhelming burden for a parent to carry when you're carrying the happiness of your children, that I need to give them a solution. And so once I got the concept that I didn't need to fix their feelings, but I needed to have that empathy and say, I can see you're feeling really frustrated, and I can see you're really hurting with that, and it can feel overwhelming to my 18-year-old daughter. She was talking about university and got all overwhelmed in tears, and everything in the world was just crashing around. And rather than me trying to fix it, it was, I can see you're so overwhelmed, and yes, it is really big choices to be making, and it's hard to know what you're going to do with your future. And just articulating, supporting her, giving her those words, rather than, oh my gosh, my kid's crying, I need to fix it. And then she sort of toddled off and came back in half an hour with her solutions, which was, so I need to talk to this teacher, and I'm going to contact this person, and we're going to go to this open day. And it kept that solution. I empowered her to come up with the solution. So she felt supported. And I think sometimes as parents, we can say, oh no, you're not feeling scared, you're not feeling this, you're not feeling that. And we try and squash it. And that's breaking that connection bond, where the children that we want, like I said, when you're talking about suicide prevention, that the children feel like they can share anything with you, that you're never going to say, oh no, that's stupid, you don't feel like that, or try and fix us. We're not trying to fix them. So I think the tip for the parents is, yes, feel that feelings aren't facts, but you don't need to try and fix your children's feelings. A really good book on this, it's an oldie but such a goodie, is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And it's just so practical, lots of pictures and cartoons if you like that kind of thing, just to guide you through how to have those conversations. And it's a game changer. So it's an important tip number 2 from me.
Yeah. Such a good reminder that we don't have to be counselors, because especially for those of us like myself, I'm a fixer, like I'm a rescuer. And I decided a couple of years ago, I'm not going to try to be like the super person that glides in and helps everybody, but it's tricky. But so I just wrote down from what you've said, like articulate, acknowledge, and empower. And that's really coming up a lot today. Obviously, that's our theme, is empowering. So we're not just supporting kids, we are empowering them. I think one of the fears, and you've mentioned it twice now, so I just want to go there with you, Kat, is, the suicide rate in New Zealand. It really gets me fired up. So you said that, I thought there's a lot of reasons, obviously, and I've heard of hopelessness being one, but you mentioned about kids feeling a burden. So anything that you can say to parents that are watching this, like, how can we just add tools to our tool belt? You've got your hammer there. How can we add tools to our tool belt around making them not feel like a burden, if that is something we want to avoid, which obviously we do?
Yeah. So I was a terrible rebellious teenager and had an awful relationship with my mum. And so I was determined that my children wouldn't be like that. So I started out when they were born that I wouldn't accept this fact that my children would be rebellious and hate me and all that kind of thing. I would just not let anyone speak that over my children, and I'd make them say, no, do not say that. It's gonna be great. And so the way I saw it and the way I could see the breakdown in my relationship with my mum, it was about connection. And that isn't built when you get to 13 and the children's 13 or 14 and suddenly you're their best mate and they can talk to you about anything. But I sort of have this a spool of thread when I'm talking to parents, and I say that every time you create connection, it's like this little lifeline thread between you, and it looks like nothing at the time, like that's not going to save a life, but you're saying that you belong here. It's a huge thing when they feel like they belong, that they're part of that family. And the funny thing is that giving them chores, giving them their roles and responsibilities in the family is creating the sense of belonging. This is the place that I belong in this family, and no matter what's happening out there in the world, this is my safe place. And so there's the belonging, but also to make them not feel like they're a burden is how do you create those times of connection when you are fully present? And technology is just disastrous for us as parents from when they're young, that even having it, like I've got mine here in front of me, but that should be in your bag and off, or on silent when you're having a conversation, even a business meeting, when you're keeping that in front of you on the table, that's showing that goes off, that's more important than you. And there's not very many times that is more important than the person and the child in front of you. So by having those times that you sort of almost corral or guard from side interruptions, that you are more important to me, our connection, our relationship, what you're going through and what you're sharing is more important than any work call, any friend that's calling on me, even the dishes in the housework or whatever we've got going on, that they know how important they are. And I'll give you another tip, another book that I really enjoyed when my children were younger is How to Really Love Your Child, and the follow-on one, How to Really Love Your Angry Child. And that talks a lot about all the different ways we create connection. And a very, very important thing is that eye contact. So if you're standing at the kitchen bench, but if a child says, Mum, can you look at this when they're tiny, stopping, turning, crouching at their level and showing that interest in what they're doing is all saying, you are so important to me, so valuable, and you mean the world to me. Because we can think that, but our kids don't necessarily know that. So
oh my gosh, I just had this vision of, it's like, I was like, be like a nanny. Like a nanny would stop what they were doing and crouch down at their level. Like, wouldn't they tell you? I've never been a nanny, but I'm like, be like a nanny. What would a nanny do?
Yeah. I think I'd love to chime in there, Nat, because Kat, I think this is incredible, this piece, but there's such a bit around the responsibility that we feel as parents, and to be able to absolve ourselves as parents from that responsibility, which is to really, start to unpack the belief that we are responsible for our child's happiness and success, and whether they have friends or not, and whether they're, all of that stuff that we feel like we have to fix and rescue from that, which you said. And to start to work on ourselves in that way, because so many of the parents that I work with have that burden of responsibility, and it completely gets in the way of being able to respond, being able to respond, and to enjoy it. My God, yes, to have joy as a parent. So yeah, I think to the connection absolutely 100% with the children, but also the connection with yourself as a parent. To be able to absolve that belief of, that we are responsible for our children is a huge to start, which will naturally allow the connection to, to be reached so much more easily and organically.
Yeah. I love that analogy of the thread going back and forth as well. All right, Talia, thank you for being so patient. What's your second tip or insight?
Can I just quickly add on what Jacqlin and also Kat said? Because Jacqlin was talking about responsibility, which made me think of, like the pressure that you have working with kids, especially when they're really more vulnerable than you and they're just wanting to soak up everything that they can about life. And so it's important to be a good role model. And, how do you be the perfect nanny or the perfect parent? And, I can't even imagine what that's like for you.
You don't.
You don't.
You don't.
That's the perfectionism to okayism.
Yeah. Well, it's so difficult. Well, something that I was reminded of this week working with the Girl Boss Edge program, where we've got 600 kids really passionate about getting into law and changing the world. And it's my job as community manager to welcome every single person in and hear about their story and, just comment and basically encourage them. And I find it so easy to hear these amazing stories of how they want to change the world and how they've already run their own charities in their schools and communities. And like, it's so easy for me to support them and say, wow, you're doing a great job. You can change the world. And I genuinely believe it. But if it was reversed, like, it's so easy to doubt myself. And I was really fascinated by what Kat was saying about how, thinking about the possible pattern of being a rebellious kid and then having rebellious kids, and how you were just saying, nope, I'm not going to think that. I'm not going to let anyone else think that. I'm not going to take that on. And I was just in awe, like, Kat, how do you change those patterns in your own head? Because, for example, one of the fears that I have is a bad pattern I have is thinking I'm terrible with technology. For example, accidentally losing myself in this group twice today when I was trying to stop the Facebook notifications coming through and interrupting the session. So, do you have any advice on how to change those patterns?
Absolutely, and this is definitely coming from a long journey of really crappy choices and brokenness in life. So when I come across something that's worked for me, I'm like, yes, you've got to all do this. And so one of the things, I'm not sure how familiar you are with CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. And so when I'm speaking in the intermediate schools and upper primary, I have the three brains there, three kids on stage, your functioning, your feeling and your thinking brain. And I talk about how you have this big feeling, like my big feeling was rejection. But when CBT and counselling, they go, what are your thoughts that you have that create this feeling? And so the thoughts that I had from things that had happened as a little child, no one wants me, I'm not good enough, no one's ever going to love me. And how CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, they'll go back into what's that lie, that belief that you've got, that you've created, that everything else comes out of. And rather than trying to change the behaviour, like I should be more confident, or I should be more this, or I should be more that, is going, you've actually got some crappy lies under there. Reprogram those, and guess what? The whole life changes. So when I realized that, and I carried that from the age of 3 right till mid-30s. So when my first husband left me, he walked out on me and he said, no one's ever going to love you. No one's ever going to want you. And I believed it, because deep down, I thought that was true. And no one would have known I had that stuff inside me. And so to go into through the counselling process and reprogram that has radically transformed my life. So that's the first thing. And I'm also, the second major tip for that is I really guard my thoughts and my words. And even this morning, my husband and I, we're always catching each other. Are you declaring that? Are you declaring, oh, I can never find a car pack. Oh, I'm bad with money. I'm bad with technology. So this morning, every morning he comes, he's my second husband and he absolutely adores me and it's amazing. But anyway, every morning he comes and he brings me a coffee in a travel mug, and it sits there and I drink that in the morning. It's lovely. But sometimes I get so distracted, I only drink half of it. So I woke up this morning and he brought me my coffee and I said, you know what really disappoints me? And he joked and he said, oh, me? like, saying he did. And I said, don't you dare say that. He goes, I was just joking. I said, you're declaring that. Don't you declare that you're a terrible husband who disappoints me. I was just going to say I get disappointed when I leave my coffee and it gets cold and I don't finish it. So those are two things, like what are your thoughts and what are your words, and you capture both of those and you reprogram those and your life's transformed. So it's quite a discipline, just like with weight. If we're always eating chocolate and eating unhealthy, we have an unhealthy outcome. So you need to catch yourself doing that. So enough from me. No more talking.
Well, I'm going to let Talia do hers, but I got to jump in because if people have been following this, I talk a lot about catching yourself in those micro moments when you're using disempowering languaging, like just, need, and should. In other words, you're living life kind of in this, what I call the should zone. So it's so interesting that you mentioned that. And my husband and I do that too. We go, need or want? When someone's like, I used to do it. I need to do this and I need to do that. And he'd go, need or want? And it's just shifting it. Instead of need, you go want, or you say ready is so much more empowering. So I love that other couples are like geeky like us and do these catching themselves out game. Very cool. The other thing I wanted to mention with that, Kat, I love that you're not talking about like talk therapy, but it's going back and really getting to the root, like the limiting belief root of the problem with someone that knows how to help you through that, and totally shifting your mindset and not just trying to change the way you're showing up, which isn't really going to get to the root of the problem. So we've touched on a lot of really good stuff here. All right, Talia, any other comments from you?
Yes. Wow. I'm so amazed by all of these great answers. Thank you, Kat, for explaining that so much. Because as we were all talking a bit about before, listening to kids, it's also important to listen to ourselves as well. So that's something that I really want to get better at. So, oh my gosh, I'm so inspired by all of you today. And I've got so many thoughts buzzing around my head. It's amazing. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was another F word, which is failure, and more importantly, the fear of failure. Because I used to be terrified of doing the wrong thing all the time. And, we all are worried about not doing things perfectly. But what I came to realize when I was traveling and working overseas is that I could actually use failure to my advantage. And if it wasn't for failure, I never would have had an opportunity to go overseas in the first place, because I had been offered a job in Wellington as a nanny. And at the same time, I was offered a job overseas, and they were at different times. So I was thinking that they would fit in together, so I could go overseas and I could come back and it would work out perfectly. But the job in Wellington, it wasn't quite as much money as I was hoping for. I didn't feel like it fitted the role. And so I deliberated and I messaged them and I told them my thoughts. And I just said, I'm not sure if it's enough for me. I'm sorry. And then I thought about it, and I was, my heart was pounding and my head was stressing. And then I thought, okay, no, if I don't take this job, I might not have the chance to go overseas without that job security when I came back. So I messaged them back and said, okay, I'll take it. And they said, I'm sorry, we've already given the job away. And so that was probably one of the lowest moments in my life. And it was just as I was getting on a plane to go to my best friend's bachelor party. So while everyone else was celebrating and playing pass the parcel and dancing, I was trying not to cry and just trying to breathe that whole weekend, thinking that I just stuffed up my life. And sometimes it's not until you lose everything that you realize what you've got. And I realized that, well, if I didn't have anything to come back to, why come back? Why don't I see what other opportunities are abroad? And I ended up staying over there for nearly 3 years. And I got to travel to so many different countries. And the reason that I got to travel to so many countries is because nannying overseas is so competitive. There are so many nannies and so many families that it was easy for me to get a job, but it was really hard for me to keep a job because, it's not like an employment contract here where you have to get 3 warnings and everything. If you don't mesh well with the family, they'll just say, right, you can go home now. We've booked a hotel for you tonight and a flight back tomorrow. and I would be like, I just spent all my money, bought a winter wardrobe to be here, committed to doing this job because I always put in 100%, and I always have to have the best intentions that it will work out. But when it doesn't work out, I realized that it can work to my advantage, because after a few times that happened, I realized you know, and I started thinking like, okay, well, you know, I've been in this job a few weeks now and it's okay, but maybe I want to go to a different country. And so I found myself starting to want it to fail, because then it would be an opportunity for a new family to fly me to a new country. And I was like, no, Talia, you've got to stop yourself thinking that. But after that experience, it's really changed my thoughts about failure. And I even look forward to it because it gives me a new way of thinking. So even today, when I accidentally cut out of the feed, not once, but twice, there was actually some joy that I felt, because I thought, okay, well, I've already done the worst thing that I could do. So
you are a rebel. You are a rebel.
That's my story.
That's cool. I think you know what? It's interesting. Fear of failure is such a big topic. We could probably do a whole live stream about failure, but I think that's right. If we can encourage kids to, what do they call them? Learning opportunities, right? Failure is a learning opportunity. So, yeah, and don't strive for perfection. Strive for growth and learning. Any comments on failure real quick before we do our last round?
Yeah, I like to call them parent face plants. That's what I call them. Like a face plant. Oh, that was an epic face plant. And I think Will Smith actually put it beautifully in one of his videos where we fail forward. You know, are you failing forward? I'm pretty sure it was Will Smith. And then it's like my boy will hurt himself, will have a big crash, you know, on a scooter. And I'm like, yeah, but was it an epic failure? And he's like, it was epic, Mum. And I think that's a beautiful energy to bring to failing, that, you know, we can find the gold in it. And that's what you were talking about, Talia, which was so beautiful.
Nice. All right, we'll go straight to you, Jacqlin, with this round is what's cool about you, what's coming up, and how can we connect?
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to just go off the back of what your two other beautiful women were talking about, which is the fact that we parent from the past, or we live from the past, you know, and this is the belief systems. And what is cool about me is that although those belief systems are a huge part of what I do, and lifting out of them so that we can be empowered and be a parent the way that we want to parent, but to be able to change our relationship to them and to be able to lift out of judgment so that they're still there. It's like, that's my not good enough piece. I know that one. And to be able to make a different choice. Yeah. And what this is all about is that when I say to people, I don't fix problems, and you kind of touched on it as well, Nat, it's like, where is the focus, you know, and that's what I work with, because I know that when I'm focusing on the negative stuff or the problems or my old belief systems from the past, then I'm feeding it. I'm giving it more energy, and I'm actually amplifying it and making it grow. And, you know, that's not exactly what we want to do with a lot of that stuff, right? And I know that Tony Robbins has a great quote, where focus goes, energy flows. So, you know, if we keep putting focus on perfectionism and control and problems, then that's the stuff that's going to get bigger, right? So, you know, what parents are giving their attention to, what they're paying attention to, what they're surrounding themselves with within their environment, what they're feeding themselves, along with the food and, you know, water that they're putting in their body. So that's what I love to work with. And a little story that I'll share quickly is I remember my brother bought a bright green car, and this is all about focus. It's a part of the brain called the RAS, and we, you know, we'd never really seen green cars around. And then my brother gets one, and then they're everywhere. They're everywhere. It's like, oh my God, green car. You know, it's like what you're focusing on is what's going to show up more in your life, yeah, when you're focusing on it. So that's what a lot of my work is about. I've got 2 programs coming up, which I'm super excited. I have an incredible Your Parent Journey group that I have amazing parents within. So I have 2 programs coming up. The first one is around the freedom of time, which is one of the F's. And there's so many F's that have come into this course, which is so great. Fear of failure and the feelings aren't facts. I love it. F's, yeah. So the freedom of time is the first mini program that I've got coming up. And then I've got my main program, which is the Pathways for Parenting. And this is the whole piece around empowerment for yourselves as a parent. And all of what we've been talking about is in there. And it's an incredible program, which can all be done from the comfort of your couch, because it's not easy for us parents to get out there and do these, you know, courses everywhere. So If you'd like to hear more about that, you can go to www.yourparentjourney.com or find me on Facebook at Your Parent Journey.
Yay, thank you. All right, Kat, what is cool about you?
I'll tell a random story and I'll try and make a point out of it, but I think it's pretty cool and weird. So a few years ago,
cool, by the way, we have to acknowledge the pink hair.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I did it for the tour because it was just like, another boring blonde person, so let's go pink. And we kept it. So I was in Australia a few years ago, and my Uber driver overheard a conversation and then started asking me about myself. I was on the phone, and he said, hey, why don't you come to Pakistan and do a speaking tour over there? You can stay with my family, but I can't come with you because my life's endangered. So I said, sure, sounds like a great idea. So long story short, within a few months, I went over and spent 3 weeks there, staying with his family. His nephew is my interpreter. His brother is my driver. And, we have a bodyguard with us the whole time, and would go and speak in a lot of schools to women, especially out in the villages when they're in slavery to the brick kilns. I'm not sure if you know much about that. So from the very poorest of the poor right through there, and had an amazing time. And I feel like they're my second family, and I love it. I love the Pakistani people. And then the following year, my daughter had been traveling with her dad overseas for about 2-3 months through Asia. And she rang and said, Mum, I want to come with you to Pakistan next time. And I was like, well, quite opposite from the hotels. There's a donkey outside the window and there's mud on the streets and it's very basic. She said, no, Mum, I just want to come and see what you do. So we actually went the following year as well and spent Christmas there, and spent another 3 weeks. So hoping to go back in October. I love the people, and I guess I'm trying to make a point out of that is the way you live your life, what you value and how you face things courageously. I mean, that cost me a lot of money. They didn't pay me, but it cost me a lot of money to go and do that. But what I was showing to my children is what's important in life is definitely not money and fame, but it's about making the world a better place. And so how she's lived her life and my children have lived their life and what they want to do with it is based on saying, this is the adventure of life. Come along, see what I do, be part of it. And one of the things my husband pointed out, I never realized how much I said it to him, is when anyone comes to a problem, whether it's him or the children, I just say, what are your choices? So to get them to problem solve. Well, I could, I've got this problem with friends at school. I could change your friendships. I could change me. I could do this. Go and talk to the person and just help them work through the pros and cons and then come up with a solution. So yeah, that's a bit about, is that cool about me? I think it's pretty cool. I love the club.
If we do want to follow you on an adventure or online, how do we do that?
So Kat Levine, my business Facebook page is the best place to see my adventures there. So anybody who's got a school that your children go to, and you can introduce me to your school principal or your DP, touring around the country and going and speaking in schools with the 3 topics.
My kids are at 3 different schools, so yeah.
So there's understanding emotions, which is the feelings aren't forever, and especially addressing anxiety and how that's impacting our kids. Second is developing empathy. I see you, you see me, and how we can about discrimination and how we speak and treat other people. And the third thing is about building resilience and bouncing back when things happen and having that inner strength to go through that. So I do the 3 talks for the children and also a parent session as well, which is about how to communicate, talking to kids about their feeling and creating that environment. And I also do I'm speaking to 800 accountants next week about workplace stress. So that's another thing as well. I do it in my style. And so, yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody who knows an association or a workplace or a school where they may be interested in a little bit of my fabulousness and pink hair, if they can handle it.
I think it's an ideal timing, really. That's what's very much needed. What age, with the schools, what age are the kids?
I haven't done preschool. I have had inquiries for that, but so in the primary schools, I usually break it up into the younger ones, sort of 5, 6, 7, and then 8 to 12, either upper primary or including intermediate, and then high schools, I'd do the same as well. I'd break that into 2 groups. I can't do them all in together, but it just means the older ones can get more meat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Talia, what about?
Wow. Something interesting about me.
Sorry, bit glitchy, but yeah. Yes.
I think the sound cut out for a second. Sorry, did you want to hear something interesting?
Go ahead.
About me? Okay. Well,
yeah.
I'm totally distracted at the moment, just these school holidays, because I'm working on this amazing Girl Boss Edge program. Can I mention a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. So I started as a volunteer with Girl Boss New Zealand last year when I had come back from overseas and just decided that I wanted to take a break from nannying and work out what I wanted to do for myself. And from when I was nannying, it was my job to find great activities for the kids that I looked after. And I loved being like an event planner and finding classes in hip hop or yoga or French lessons for them to do. So when I came back, I was like, well, maybe I want to do French lessons, and maybe I want to do not hip hop, but I did do salsa dancing, and I joined some circus and other things. And I started going to really cool events, including one that was hosted by Natalie in Lower Hutt, which was amazing. And
which is where we met.
Exactly. And so around that time, I saw that Girl Boss was holding an event to empower young women to be future-ready leaders in whatever fields that they're passionate about. And I was like, yes, that's me, empowering kids, which we love. And so I just sent, and I realized I was up in Auckland just for the weekend, and I saw they had an event on, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can go to it, or that it was for kids. And I was like, okay, well, I'm even more interested. And so I sent an email to Vicky and Alexia, and I just sent them my CV, and I said, hey, I'm really keen to help out in any way. And Vicky emailed me back straight away and was like, yep, we'd love to have you and use your background in performing. We're wondering if you can provide some activities for them during the break. And I was like, yes, this is a perfect opportunity for my performing background to do like some improv games. And I just got to create some great activities depending on what they were feeling like at the time. We did like a spontaneous karaoke session up on the big screen, and we had like fashion shows, and that was really cool. So I've been involved with it since, and at the moment they've got their holiday program for 15 to 18-year-olds interested in law. And now because of COVID, we're not doing it in person, but because we're doing it online, we're actually able to have 600 students this year from all around the country. So that's pretty incredible, and a great networking opportunity within the kids, and to mentor them up with some of the incredible speakers that we've got today. Later today, we've got Rez Gardy, who was Young New Zealander of the Year in 2015. Was 2017, and she's done incredible work prosecuting ISIS in overseas and people affected by it and helping them. It's incredible, her journey. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about her today. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Outside,
and we've got the link for Girl Boss. So it's a super cool organization based in Wellington. Is that right?
They're based in Auckland, but we go where the girls are. So before COVID, every school holiday we would do it like a week-long workshop in a different city to get as many girls in as possible. They apply online, and we've been able to sponsor with some incredible organizations like Ministry of Education to fund that for the girls. So it's actually totally free for them, and they just apply. And I've just been able to hear the most amazing stories of these girls we have in the program who have been like young volunteer of the year for the New Zealand, like the runner-up, and amazing other people who are doing charities. And definitely keep an eye on their website and things, because we'll definitely be seeing more of them.
Awesome. And what about you? Where can we find you online?
I have a website, Ready Set Glow Girl, and Instagram of the same name. And it will just be following my journeys coming up with the work that I do. And I've also got some acting work coming up, which I love doing. I've been like an extra and things, and was featured in a Netflix series last year, which will hopefully be coming out once they can restart and finish the filming because of COVID.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. All right, ladies, we're going to wrap it up. That is so amazing to talk about kids. What a crucial topic. We touched on so many things. Thank you for your expertise. And any final one final phrase from you, Jacqlin?
Oh, Oh, I think what I was going to add was by shifting your focus onto what you actually want to create and what you want to be and how you want to show up in your life as a parent, problems organically fix themselves.
Oh, goody. That sounds good. All right, Kat, any final words from you?
You've got this.
Nice. Talia, do you have a final comment or quote?
Yeah, I talked about the fear of failure. So I just want to say, don't be afraid to succeed.
Love it. What a great note to finish on. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been amazing. I'll just stay there. I'll just pop you off to the side. Stay there. We'll just catch up in a minute. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Please do comment as you listen to let us know what one action from today you're going to take, something you're going to really take, and you're going to apply it to your life with your kids. Whether it's releasing yourself from the pursuit of perfection, or whether it's taking some of these amazing F words that we've been talking about today, and just apply them to your life. That's really what we want. We want to see you take action on this. So coming up, here's what's coming up from us. We've got next week, attitude and gratitude. So we're going to be talking about having a positive attitude and gratitude during times of change. And then we're going to wrap up the entire season talking about relationships and healthy and happy relationships in times of change. So those are our upcoming topics. I also mentioned last week something exciting coming up with Up Your Brave. If you want to up your brave, I've got something coming out in August. So be sure to grab my 6 tips to up your brave, and then you can get on the info list and stay in the loop. All right, guys, until next time, this is Natalie Cutler-Welsh saying, remember to up your brave, say what you want, and make it happen. See you. See you guys.